Where do you start? Well, you start with a plan. But just with anything you want to do well in life, you start with a plan. And with RPG Maker or making a game in any game engine whatsoever, you're going to need feedback on your game. You're going to need people to be able to play it and then tell you what works and what doesn't work. That way you can act upon that feedback to make the best game that you could possibly make. And how do you get that feedback? You do it by making an MVP, a minimum viable product. So what is an MVP? It is basically a prototype featuring what makes your RPG Maker game different. It's going to be polished only enough to show off what matters, must be playable, and made for the purpose of early feedback. So when you're making this, you literally have to think in terms of people are going to play this. They are going to tell me what works and doesn't work, what they like and they don't like. And then I'm going to take that information and make my game the best that I can. You know, in that second part of that, polished only enough to show off what matters, is one of the most important things. Because you don't want to waste your time on things that don't matter to your game. If your battle system isn't going to be anything special, if it's going to basically be the default with a few little changes, don't do anything at all with your battle system for your MVP. Unless if one day you just get the urge to try something different with your battle system. If your goal is to make an MVP, you don't want to focus on that. Also, any time you spend on something, for me, for a battle system, it's time I'm not spending on the things that are important, which I'll lay out in the next part of this video is, the graphics and the story. In fact, it took me longer to get my MVP done because I started going off on this rabbit hole of something else, the feature that I thought about adding to my game that wasn't part of the core of what made my game special. And it threw me off for a couple days, and then I was able to come back and I went from planning on having my MVP ready in about a week from now to having it done yesterday. And that's where understanding what makes your game important and polishing that and not focusing on the other stuff really comes in handy in getting stuff done. And of course, if it's not playable, people can't give you feedback. And that doesn't mean it doesn't have bugs. I mean, that's what the feedback's there for, is to let you know what is buggy. But considering that at this point you should only have about 10 minutes of gameplay done, the bugs should be fairly at the minimum. And of course, it's for the purpose of early feedback, which means, gasp, you're gonna get some assholes out there that are going to make you feel like crap. So prepare for that. But you know what? If you find the right places to solicit feedback, you are going to also get a lot of actionable feedback that you can actually do things based off of. So next thing you have to ask yourself is, what makes your game different? And what makes my game different? That's the first thing I need to answer. And the first thing is my graphics. That's what makes my game special. From what I can see by looking through the different RPG Maker projects that are in development and a lot of them that are done, using DAZ Studio for the graphics isn't something that other people have really done. So that makes my game special. It makes a difference. So that's something I need to really focus on, making sure that it looks pretty sharp. My story, the reason why I'm doing this at all, and this is another thing you probably have to ask yourself, is why am I making a game? What are the things that I'm passionate about that cause me to want to make a game? And for me, it's storytelling. So I absolutely had to have my story far enough along in my MVP for people to be able to give feedback on, to tell them what works, what gets them excited, what questions do they have based off of the story that you've already laid out for them. If one of the things that you're really excited about with your game is your story, you should give them at least a couple characters that they can get to know a little bit, that they can start to care about. So in getting ready to release my MVP, I went back and redid dialogue. I added a cutscene before what used to be the beginning of my game to flesh out the main characters just a little bit. Basically told the story up to the point where my MVP stops, to the point where I feel like people can get a good idea of what my game is about. The third thing was my battler animations. Now, this is something I'm very much working on still. In fact, I just started learning how to do these battler animations. And ultimately, if I had never gone down this rabbit hole to make these new battler animations just a few days ago, it's probably something that I probably could have skipped in creating my MVP. But I got it good enough to where I feel like it's something that could stand out. It's something different, and it's something I can give feedback on that, if people are completely against it, or if people even make the point of, I just want you to get on with the story. That's feedback I could take and say, you know what, maybe I don't want to spend time on these battler animations and I could just focus on the graphics and the story. But I won't know that until I start getting feedback on that. And the fourth thing for me was custom character sprites. Now, if you play my demo or my prototype, you'll notice that my two main characters have slightly different angles on them that I rendered the images from. And I left that there on purpose because I want to see if I get feedback on which one people prefer, or if people even notice, if they say, yeah, it was a little weird that, one was more top down and the other was more from the side. But I definitely want to try to get feedback. So if there's some things, if there's a couple different ideas that you have in your game that you're not sure that you want to go with one or the other, maybe leave a couple things that are purposely there to make the people playing your game or your MVP see if they make comments about, hey, I really liked what you did with this thing, not so much this other one. They seem different for some reason, and I like this one better. So sometimes you just leave things in there that that people are going to make comments on and maybe going to like or dislike, but you won't know if they like or dislike it until you start getting some feedback. Then you need to decide how important is each feature. So I knew my story and my graphics are both equally important to me. They're important for two things. They're important because they are what makes my project special, at least in my mind. The things I think will stand out, the amount of time and effort I put into the story and in the graphics. But also they're the things that I really, really enjoy doing. Especially if you're making this game solo, if you don't have friends or a studio to work on it with you, you are going to want to focus on the things that you enjoy doing. Otherwise, you're never going to finish the project. So yeah, the graphics and the story I'm going to focus mostly on. The battler animations I do enjoy doing, and depending on the feedback I get, those are things that I really do want to get better and better at. And the custom character sprites, the cool thing about that is that once I kind of get a system down on it, that's not going to take me a whole lot of time. So I do want to get a little bit of feedback so I can decide, what angle to shoot those or to render those images from. Besides that, it's not as important as the things above that on the list. So as I'm making my MVP, I definitely went back right before I released it. I went back and I polished the things, the graphics, the story, rewrote some dialogue, checked for spelling errors, which there's probably still some in there. I need to download a plugin that actually does spell check for me. I'm pretty good with those things, pretty good with grammar, but definitely not an editor level when it comes to that. And then the graphics, I polished them a little bit. I still need to go back and redo some character buffs. I have a little inconsistency on the sharpening of the images and some of the color that's coming out of the characters. They're a little bit inconsistent there, so I will eventually those things will be shored up. And then do the bare minimum on the things that don't make the list. My actual battle system isn't going to be anything special. That's not my focus, so I didn't make any changes to that really. Creating new skills and creating new items. I renamed potion into elixir. Other than that, I really didn't do much with that because those aren't things that made it on my list of things that make my game special. So, I didn't waste my time on those things because any time I spend on creating new skills is time I'm not spending on the story and the graphics and the other things that make my game different. So now that I've got an MVP, what am I going to do with it? Well, first of all, I'm going to solicit feedback. And I'm still in the research stage on how to do that. I've got my demo up, my MVP, my prototype. Now I just got to figure out how to get people to play it. One way is to ask them. So, hey, right now, let's take a second to do that. Go into the link below, go to my itch.io page, download the demo, give it a try, and give me some feedback. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. And when you do that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to react on the actionable criticism that you give me and other people give me. Now, what's actionable criticism? Well, when somebody says, wow, this game sucks, that's not actionable criticism. You can't do anything based off of that. Of course your game sucks. Of course my game sucks. It's not finished. It's the minimal viable product. And anybody that gives that kind of comment isn't really trying to help you. So you know what? Don't let them bother you. Actionable criticism is, for instance, I feel like I'm going to still get some people saying that my maps need some work. And if they give me specific things that they think I can work on, whether it's different colors, whether it's the contrast between walkable areas and non-walkable areas or the out of bounds. You know, if I get comments on the sprites being too big or too small for the map or the screen, those are the types of things that I can take and act upon that criticism, that feedback. Getting feedback that you should just stop trying because you don't have the skills or you don't have the talent to be able to make your game, none of that helps at all. And you should immediately just move on from any of those kind of comments. But you should prepare to have your ego crushed. At this point, you probably have a product, and I know I have a product that I feel is pretty damn good. I'm proud of it. I want people to like it. Well, the people giving you feedback, especially if they truly are looking to help you make a better game and to get better at what you're doing, are going to have some negative things to tell you. I actually released an MVP, or at least what I thought was a decent MVP, just a couple weeks ago. And believe me, the feedback I got, I had to go into it with thick skin because there was a lot of criticism in it. But luckily, and it was the RPG Maker forums, all of it was actionable. In fact, I made so many changes to the beginning of my game based off that actionable feedback that the version of the demo that I released just yesterday is miles ahead, way ahead of what I had before. And I plan on having the next version, the next demo, the next prototype be infinitely better than the one I just released yesterday. But yeah, prepare to have your ego crushed. Prepare to have people let you know that you're definitely not ready to release a game. You definitely need to improve your skills, and you definitely have to make some major changes to your game. Next thing after that, make connections with people that give you good feedback. Now, I suck at this. I focus so much on making my game that I do a pretty crappy job of getting into the forums and actually making connections with people, commenting on their projects and the things that they, the discussions that they have. And that's something I'm going to be working on heavily over the next week or so, is getting into the forums and making connections with the people that give me feedback. Not only the people that give me feedback, but maybe people that have projects that their skill set could probably help me out, and just make connections with them so that maybe we can help each other out. And the last thing is plan your next area of focus. So I have an action plan of the things I'm going to work on next. I still have 3 characters that I have to introduce, so I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on shoring up some of the graphics in the beginning of the game that I just want to be a little bit more consistent. I'm going to focus on the battler animations. I've got all those things, but I don't truly know exactly what my action plan is because I haven't gotten feedback yet. So I'm going to take whatever feedback I get, whatever criticism I get, and I'm going to make a plan based off of it. This is what I'm going to focus on for whatever the next version of my MVP is, the next version of my prototype is. And my goal will be to make that version a lot better than the version I just released yesterday. And then the next version after that is even better than that. And the next version, and you just keep going and going and going until the final product you have is something that you could be truly proud of and is ready for people to not just playtesters, not just people that you want feedback from, but actual players to play your game. And the last step is keep working on your game. I'm going to keep working on mine. Having an MVP, having a product that I can put out there and get feedback on is so inspiring. It gives me so much energy. And that's another reason to make it. To make something that you can put your stamp on, that you could put your name on and say, look what I'm making. So yeah, go out there, keep creating. Now that my MVP is done, I'm going to have a little bit more time to make videos. So I'm going to be doing this series on making a game in RPG Maker. And more than that, telling a story with RPG Maker. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification button. I'll see y'all later.